Welcome to our tutorial about microphone techniques. Later in this section, I'll be talking about strategies for recording different instruments, but in this tutorial, I'll be giving an overview of mic techniques. It's a continuation of our previous two tutorials about mics, where we learned about how they work and what types of microphones exist. Suppose you're miking a singer, a guitar, a sax. Which mic do you use? Where should it go? Mic technique is really important because it has a huge impact on the quality and character of your recording. Your output is only as good as your input, so it's important to take the time to experiment and understand miking principles. There's no right mic for any instrument because every mic sounds different and you pick the one that gives you the sound you want. The two main characteristics that affect the sound are the frequency response, how it records and impacts various frequencies in the spectrum, the lows, the mids, the highs, and secondly, the polar pattern, which direction it picks up sound from. The frequency response of the mic should cover at least the frequencies produced by your instrument. So, for example, if you're recording an electric bass, the notes on the bass, the fundamental frequencies, range from 41 Hz to 300 Hz, with harmonics going from 1 to 7 kHz. If you're recording the bass amp instead of lining it in, you'd want a mic that has a frequency response from 41 Hz to 7 kHz in order for the recording to be accurate. On this table, you can see the frequency ranges of various instruments, their fundamentals, and their harmonics. Note the wide harmonic spectrum of the human voice. Even though the bass starts as low as 87 Hz, the harmonics are still present as high as 12 kHz. The polar pattern, you'll remember from our previous tutorial on mics, affects the leakage from the other instruments and the recorded ambience of the room. The more leakage and room ambience, the more distant the instrument sounds. Omnis sound more distant than unidirectional microphones, so with these, you have to tend to mic closer up. Now let's talk about the number of microphones you need. Well, this depends on what you're recording. 2 microphones or a stereo mic work great if you want an overall blend. Let's say you're recording 2 background vocalists. Don't use 2 mics when one will suffice. This keeps the sound clearer. These days, you'll probably have 1 microphone per instrument or voice in your studio, and then you can worry about mixing them afterwards in your software. Mic position. How close should the mic be? For a tight, present sound, mic close, 1 to 6 inches, or about 3 to 20 centimeters. For a distant, spacious sound, mic a little bit further. This can add a live, loose, and airy feel, especially if you're overdubbing instruments. The farther the microphone from the instrument, the more leakage and room ambiance that gets picked up. If you want to reject these as much as possible, then mic close up. If you're getting too much leakage, you need to mic close and use directional microphones, if not line in directly. A mic that's far away, like 10 feet or about 3 meters, is picking up mostly room reverb. Often boundary mics are used exactly for this. You tape one to the wall, or 2 if it's a stereo instrument, and you mix it with the usual close mics to give the recording a sense of natural space. This is helpful to make a digital piano sound more authentic. Then you can line it in direct as well, but also record the ambience through your PA and mix it in. Live classical music is always recorded at a distance, about 4 to 20 feet, since the room reverb is always a part of the sound. Having said that, make sure you don't mic too close. The quality can be too bassy or harsh. That's because most instruments are designed to sound best at a distance, at least 1 to 1.5 feet, or about half a meter. An instrument's sound needs some space to develop. If you mic at this distance, you're more likely to pick up a blend of all the parts of the instrument that give it character and timbre. When you mic too close, you'll record only the part of the instrument that you're close to, not the tone quality of the whole instrument. So, for example, a sax projects high from the bell, but the lows and mids come from the tone holes. So if you just mic the bell of your saxophone, you're going to get a harsher sound. Let's say you've got a microphone too close to the hole of an acoustic guitar. The recording's going to end up with more bassy boom than if you mic a little further away. To make it sound more natural, you need to lower some of the bass frequencies in your mixer or use a mic with a bass roll-off. Generally, you get a natural sound if you mic as far from the source as the source is big. That way, the mic picks up all the sound radiating parts of the instrument about equally. Let's say the body of your acoustic guitar is 18 inches long or about 45 centimeters. Mic it at this distance and check. If it sounds too distant, move it closer until you get the sound you want. Moving a microphone to the left, right, up or down also changes the recorded tone quality. Why? Remember what I said earlier about your studio being a very complex group of radiating sound waves? Well, instruments radiate different tone qualities in each direction, and each part of an instrument produces a different tone quality, like the saxophone that we talked about a moment ago. You can mic your instruments in different locations and test, experiment, listen until you get a sound you like. Or you can plug one of your ears and listen to the instrument with your uncovered ear. Move around until you find a spot you like best and put the microphone there. What about the distance between mics? Let's say you're miking more than one instrument, each with its own microphone. If the musicians are too close together, the sound is going to get blurred. If you spread out the musicians and mic them up close, the sound will be clearer. Generally, try to space the mics at least 3 times the mic to source distance. That's called the 3-to-1 rule. If 2 mics are 1 foot or about 30 centimeters from the musician, the mics should be at least 3 feet apart. If you're using 2 cardioid mics aiming in the opposite direction, they can be closer. That's because cardioids have a high rejection of sound from the back. Again, always test, always listen for leakage, which might cause phase cancellation. That results in a hollow sound. Try to line in and overdub as much as you can as an alternative. And this concludes our tutorial about microphone techniques.